Hi, this is Sam Mullen here at Atlas USA, and I'm going to give you some pointers today for Droplitz, the addictive puzzle game from Blitz Arcade. Droplitz is now out on PSN, XBLA, PC, and iPhone. At first glance, Droplitz appears to be a casual game, but it's actually pretty challenging and requires some strategy. Here are a few tips. When you first play Droplitz, the board can be a bit overwhelming with the paths going this way and that. But in reality, there are only 5 types of dials. I dials, Y dials, U dials, L dials, and X dials. One of the first hurdles to mastering Droplitz is to learn the dials and know how to position them. You see, certain dials almost always require certain orientations in certain situations. Once you understand this, you'll be turning dials without worrying if they immediately connect to something or not. Let me show you an example. Now we have some really good examples on this screen. Before I even start worrying about paths, there's some dials here that just need to be turned right off the bat. For example, these 2 I dials here at the bottom, they'll never be of any use in the current position, so I'm going to go ahead and turn them upright. After that, I'll never need to touch them again because that's the only way they're going to connect. Next, up in the corners I have some L dials. Droplets don't come out of walls, so in this position they'll never be of any use. So I'm going to go ahead and turn them and orient them towards the droppers like this. Another common example would be this Y dial here at the bottom. Sometimes they end up falling like this, pointing into a wall, but it'll never make a connection, despite the fact that it actually connects to the 2 dials above it. So when these Y dials straddle the base like this one, always turn it so it points up. Same for this L dial here. They're never functional like this when both ends point down or up, so just turn it. It doesn't really matter which way you turn it, just so that one end is up and the other is down. Getting into a habit of turning the pieces into certain positions like this will increase the likelihood of getting connections during and between rounds, so this is a really important first step. After you understand the dials, the next thing to tackle is the paths themselves. A common practice for beginning Droplitz players is to sort of start in the middle of the board and look around for connections. This may be intuitive, but it's not really the most efficient thing to do. This can really lead to trouble in the larger boards, where it's easy to get lost if you don't have a plan. Since the point of the game is to connect to the 2 ends of the board, I would recommend starting at the top or the bottom, rather than the center. From there, sweep up and down, turning dials as you go. If you run into a dead end, it's usually at the opposite end of where you started. No sweat. Just start over again by tweaking the path you made, or switch to another dropper or collector and try again. By performing this sweeping pattern, you're pretty much guaranteed to find paths and do so more efficiently. On top of that, you'll put the dials in more or less an inline position, so ultimately you'll have a lot more accidental path creation, which is always nice. Once you have the basic dial shapes and path flows down, you should be able to consistently make paths without too much stress. At this point, the game takes on its zen-like appeal and you'll find yourself immersed in the game's music and environment. But don't get too relaxed. Now it's time to show your A game. When you connect all the droppers and connectors on the board to paths, you'll get what's called a full house. When you do this, you get 200 points for every dropper and connector, on top of the normal points you get for the dials you used. On a small map, that's at least an instant 1,000 points right there. You can't make a full house with every dial set up, but with some practice you'll find that full houses become easier and easier to make. Be sure to use U dials to help you connect droppers and collectors that appear to be isolated. Also, try to think ahead and position dials to be more helpful, and try to get rid of troublesome I dials as soon as you can. Now that you're able to make full houses when you need to, let's take the next step. Next, you'll need to understand the multiplier system. Every time you make a connection, your multiplier, displayed on the right side of the screen, goes up by 1. This includes making a single new connection or adding dials to an existing connection. On a small board, you can usually get about a 5x multiplier without too much work. For example, watch here as I make a single full house. This should give me about 1,500 points or so by itself, but when multiplied, it actually nets me over 10,000 points. And that's just with a 5x multiplier. What if you had a 50x multiplier? Now it's time for the really crazy scores. Most of the time, you can only get about a 5x to 10x multiplier before the dials clear, after which your multiplier resets. But you can keep your multiplier and roll it over into the next round by performing what's called a chain reaction. A chain reaction is basically when you form a connection instantly as the new round starts. This is performed either by luck or setting up your next connection and locking it in while the new dials are falling into place, like this. By rolling your multipliers into the next round repeatedly, and with a little luck, you can build really high multipliers. For example, in this game, I built an 82x multiplier. Not only did this cause my score to rise more rapidly, but in the end it netted me over 700,000 points instantly when the combo ended. Man, I wish I had gotten a full house there.